Hey world, thank you for joining me right here at GPTV1 as I cover the live updates of P. Diddy's trial. And currently, right now, what they have on the stand, they have another victim named Jane. And she's one of Combs' alleged victims. And I want to look up some of the updates as I go through this. So stay tuned, fam. We in here. We covering the Diddy trial updates live real time. You here? Make sure you click that like button and make sure you click that notification bell. It definitely helps out the channel. I appreciate it, fam. Right now, I want to go to some other updates on this as I switch around to the various news outlets. And there's so many people that's piling into this courtroom, and a lot of those people are independent vloggers. Isn't that interesting? They don't have any corporate structures or whatever behind them, but they mob it up in these courtrooms, and people from the public can go. So if I was over there, I'd be over there too. I got family out there in New York City, so it'll be all good. But let's switch to some more live updates and see what this other channel is talking about. This is, let me see, who is this? This from CNN and see what they are talking about. So let's switch over to CNN right quick and see what they talking about in terms of their updates. Then I'm going to find some articles, some real-time stuff. So stay with me, fam. I appreciate it. Click that like button while you're here. So let's switch this out. And see what CNN is talking about. Right. So here goes CNN and see what are their latest updates on this case. Let me unmute that.
And honoring the judge's order not to, as you've said, antagonize by looking.
So first, the defendant is the most important person at that table. And they're the one with their life on the line because we're talking about liberty interest here in this case.
Diddy tactics.
They have every right to, not just in addition to whomever the defense also has looking at the jury, they have a right to look at the jury. If they notice something that can aid in their case, if they notice a juror slipping or sleeping, a juror questioning, a juror frowning, and want to let their attorneys know that it's happening, the reason why they're there is so they can see. Now,
Diddy got rights
there's
now.
a line, and yes, you have to coach them beforehand. You might hear this today, and this is going to be hard to take, and here's the way I'm going to need you to respond to that, and here's how we prep for that. So that's the work of preparing for trial. But in any trial that I've been in, the voice I needed to hear the most, the voice that was most important throughout witness testimony was my client.
Really important. And of course, you have right to confront your accusers. And
I mean, Diddy got rights. I mean, he can look at the jury and all of that type stuff, but he also a slickster. He'll try to hypnotize you. I don't blame him. So you're going to try to do whatever you can to beat these cases. There's so much stacked against him.
Stephen Torres, she testified. I got to tell you, sitting in that courtroom, the defense was scoring a lot of points with her. They talked about the civil lawsuits, about a financial motive. The dates were wrong. There were some discrepancies, some memory issues.
Yeah, she kept saying, I don't know this, that, and the thirds. Every witness is not going to be a good witness. They're going to get some points. So Diddy got some good lawyers.
Issue. Was it a mistake?
I think it was a mistake. I think they didn't need her.
But why didn't they need her? Because she talked about the balcony. Why is that not important to a RICO case?
Well, so I could see them wanting to get that, but they really needed to nail that down. You know, we were talking about this before. You get the timing nailed down. For example, if she wasn't sure about the date, then that should have been established in the direct. It shouldn't come out, as Gene said, in the cross, because then it makes her look guilty. I think it destroyed her testimony. I haven't been a great fan of the
No doubt.
cross-examinations generally. This one was good.
And by the way, there was a moment, I'll finish your point, but there was a moment at the very beginning of the cross when Westmoreland asked the question about the immunity and said, you only can be prosecuted if you're lying, right? Yes. Who gets to decide whether you're lying?
Where are the co-conspirators in this case?
Here's
The unindicted people.
more than quarter for the prosecutors,
Sure.
the defense. But this is an example, in my view, of a lack of preparation. She was a Jekyll and Hyde witness. When she probably prepped, she was good. But on the stand, if they didn't pin down that date, you can't rehabilitate a witness after you've been crushed across on the date. It's too late.
It can't be, it happened someday, and they said it happened on a particular day. Thank you so much, everyone.
This morning, Sean Combs' sex trafficking trial is set to resume. More testimony from Combs' ex-girlfriend is testifying under the suit Jane. Another explosive day in court yesterday.
That's who on the stand right now. So this is CNN and their update. And I'm looking for some more updates. So stay with me, fam.
Combs, and I'm quoting here, not vigorously in their direction. Here now, Joey Jackson, legal analyst and criminal attorney, explain why Combs gesturing toward jury is such a problem. Is the judge worried about influence, potential fear, ethical issues? What are the
intimidation? It's jury is sort of sacred, right? Sort of group of people, and you don't want to influence them at all, right? Real or imagined. And so the attorneys are often told, well, they're told basically every day, listen, the bottom line is, and during jury selection, look, the attorneys are not going to speak with you. They'll have no interaction with you. They're not being rude, but I've instructed them that they don't want to influence your decision in any way. Now take that to the client himself. Certainly we're emotional people, everyone is, and so you're engaged in the proceeding. You may nod, you may do something, but you're not going to do that to the extent that you may influence the jury. So the judge here being concerned, saying we're not going to head nod, we're not going to do any of that. And
I ain't mad at him, whatever edge you can use.
Removed, and off the judge will say, Jackson, step up to the bench. Your client's kind of nodding. Tell him not to do that, okay, in any way, shape, or form, and we'll be okay. But I don't think he'll be removed. The judge trying to take control and ensuring that the trial goes as good.
All right.
For sure. Right now on the stand is one of Diddy's ex-girlfriends, and she claims she is one of those victims that had to do the freak off stuff. And I believe this is a woman who claims she was dating Diddy all the way up until he got arrested. So just some of the updates on that one. And what does it say? What to know about the sex trafficking trial? A former girlfriend of Combs, identified by this name Jane, and that's why many people think these is one of those co-conspirators, unindicted type people. They just haven't given these people titles. They just giving them these alias names. So that's what's confusing people, because people keep saying, "Where's the Rico people at?" Because you only got him on trial. Where's the rest of the people? It's supposed to be a continuing enterprise. Where's that part at? So, but let's go. She returned to the stand today and broke down in sobs as she described encounters with sex partners during alleged hotel nights that she said could go on for multiple rounds. The details of the hotel nights are nearly identical to what Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, referred to as freak-offs. Jane was asked what protection she and entertainers used during hotel nights. So they didn't change the name up from freak off to hotel nights. So they get different titles for these freaky sessions, I guess you could say. And when you're taking like ecstasy and all that type of stuff, it'll keep you up all night and very sexual. So I hear. I've never taken that type of stuff, but I heard about it. Jane was asked what protection and hotel nights and said they used none because Combs did not want it. So they were doing all this stuff with no protection. That's interesting. That's dangerous too. Combs faces 5 criminal counts, so we know the counts. Yeah, that's some of the live briefings that's coming from Diddy's ex-girlfriend. And let's go back to this guy and see what he's talking about.
New York judge is threatening to throw Sean Diddy Combs out of
Okay, we heard that one.
During Thursday's proceeding, Combs' sex trafficking trial. The judge warned the defence Combs will be excluded if he continues to try to interact with the jury. The judge adds during testimony earlier he saw Combs looking at the jury and, in his words, nodding vigorously. Joining us outside the court, CNN's Elizabeth Wagmeister. Elizabeth.
Yes, this was a very strong warning from the judge. She told Diddy's defense that if he continues to interact with the jury, that he will be excluded from his own trial, meaning that he will not be able to sit inside that courtroom and face his accusers, which of course he has the right to do as a defendant. Now, as you said, the judge said that he himself noticed Combs nodding vigorously on 2 different occasions during testimony earlier today from Brianna Bongolan, who was a close friend of Ventura's. Now, I do want to note that the jury was not present for
actually occurred. Westmoreland asked her, "You agree that one person can't be in two places at the same time. Bonglin replied after a bit of a break, in theory, yeah. They ended with a criticalness on the stand. The Diddy accuser, named Jane, who is identified as victim number 2 in the government's indictment. She says she first met Diddy in about 2020 and was dating him until his arrest. She described a very intense relationship involving drugs and vacations and financial support. But she said that Pandora's box had been opened in 2021 when Diddy brought other men into their sexual relationship.
That's why he stopped
She
messing with
described those
Cassie.
encounters as debauchery or hotel nights, which prosecutors say are the same things as what Cassie Ventura referred to as freak-offs. Jane testified that she would have sex with other men while Diddy watched. And she said some of those sessions lasted more than 24 hours.
Yeah,
So, of course,
ecstasy, how you up doing
decorated
that?
red lights, music would be playing, and there'd be, quote, bed sheets covering everything, blankets, towels. She was asked what it was all for, and she replied, for the excessive use of baby oil everywhere. Jane said she told Diddy multiple times that she did not want to have sex with other men, but he wouldn't listen. She explained why she went along with it at first, saying, quote, I feared losing him. I just wanted to be everything that he wanted. Now, Jane is going to be back on the stand tomorrow.
That's some deep stuff. Again.
I want to begin with CNN's Kara Scannell, our eyes and ears in the courtroom. She has been from the beginning part of this case. Kara, the judge, as you know.
This Jane person is on the stand right now, and I got an update on that. And it says in graphic, tearful testimony depicted by her time with Sean Diddy Combs, a former girlfriend known as Jane. Jane said during Combs' escapades, he dictated what he wanted her to do. And at the end of the sessions, the escorts were finished on her. And we all know this stuff is disgusting, it's nasty, and just horrible, you know. But people live that lifestyle, that's on y'all or whatever. So, but this is what she said. She testified she and Combs would have sex immediately after, and he wouldn't let her clean the ejaculation off her body. Dang. That's some deep stuff right there. Like I said, we all know this stuff. Everybody agree this stuff is nasty or horrible and all that stuff. Ecstasy will keep you up for a long time. It makes you very freaky, so I've heard. She also said Combs would not allow condoms to be worn by the men. That is too nasty for me. That's too dirty. Like, you having sex with these random people and all that type of stuff, and you don't know that, and you ain't wearing no protection. That's ludicrous right there. Asked why she felt like she needed Combs' permission for condoms to be worn when men were having sex with her. Jane cried and said, I don't know, I'm still trying to process that. And it talks about Combs and his charges, and of course he denying all charges. Jane testified that the sex parties Combs controlled were called hotel nights. And you heard the reporter just say all of that. And it says that Combs was paying her rent $10,000 a month. So she felt obligated, or he was going to cut that off. Yeah. And she cried during parts of her testimony, and she didn't want to be involved with Combs' freak-offs. I hated it, Jane said. If I'm going to do this, I should choose who's going to be on my body. She testified that the longest one of the 4 sex marathons lasted more than 3 days. And this is over the New Year. Okay, going back live over here. So we're going to switch up. I got some live action going over here. So let's switch the screen and see what they're talking about. I'm a big fan. So let's switch this. This is a live update.
But any aspect of it you want to talk about, I have an all-star panel that I'm going to be bringing on in a minute. But also, today Today's a big day because it's the continuation of the testimony of alleged victim 2 in this case.
She does
Jane.
a great
Pseudonym
job,
being
you all.
used. We do not know for sure who she is, but this is a single mother who claims that she is a victim of sex trafficking. And I will tell you, based on the testimony so far today, it does become a question. Is she proving sex trafficking for the prosecution? Has she proven transportation to engage in prostitution? Has she helped with the elements of racketeering? These are all the charges that Sean Combs is facing. So before I get to your questions, I got to bring in right now Elizabeth Milner, Law and Crimes in-court reporter,
She does a
who
good
is
job.
in there for all of the action today. Elizabeth, it is good to see you. We already have questions coming in direct for you, so let's get right into it, because I know always my time with you is limited. We have a question from Danny, and this is the central question. This is the central question, because I asked yesterday, it was more introductory. She seemed to talk about the love that she had in this relationship with Sean Combs, how she met him in 2020, the relationship began in 2021, started to introduce her into these voyeuristic sexual episodes. I wasn't hearing force, fraud, coercion for sex trafficking, right? And using those methods to induce somebody into commercial sex acts. So the question now is, from Danny, this is a question for Elizabeth.
She does a good job. She's very detailed in how she give her updates.
Based from Diddy. The floor is yours, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to answer that. I feel like we're still kind of getting into the depths of more of her direct testimony, whereas right away with Cassie, for example, it was you could kind of make the dots and connect the dots. Sorry, I cannot speak today. You can connect it a little bit easier with Cassie's testimony. For example, you have the Intercontinental Hotel incident, the surveillance video. But as far as just coercion specifically to Jane, it's kind of hard to really tell at this point. There were times while she was on the witness stand today, for example, that she would just break down into a lot of tears to the point that AUSA Maureen Comey was like, do you need to take a break? Are you okay? Do you want to keep going? And Jane just continued to push through. But she got really emotional at points when it came to just how long that these freak-offs would last, to the point where she would be so that she would request or kind of give a look to her partner, as she calls him, but that look was to Diddy or to Sean Combs, as she also calls him on the witness stand. But she was kind of explaining that there were times where she'd be really exhausted from a freak off or a hotel night or a debauchery night, whatever they call it, and then Diddy would want more escorts to come. So when they were done with one escort, that escort would leave, then another escort would come, that escort would leave, then another escort would come into the hotel room, and then that escort would leave. And so she did have points today where it was very emotional, but as far as force, fraud, and coercion, it's kind of hard to tell, mainly because Jane a lot of the times was like, I did it to please him. I did it to make him happy. I knew these were things that turned him on, and I just wanted to make sure that he was happy. I would give him massages. I would watch or put on his favorite show. I would cook for him after these hotel nights or freak-off sessions. And so it's a pretty gray area right now, but I think that during the direct, which is going to continue until 5 p.m. today, that somewhere, some point, maybe the dots will be connected a little bit more than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I'm going to talk about it later. You know, there were aspects of it where she talks about throwing up and then being forced to.
I mean, P. Diddy gonna get some points.
Crying, him being dismissive. Then there's problems, like she still wanted to be in his arms. She's calling him sweet. That it seems like he didn't force her to have sex with one sex worker that was, sweating. But I think a lot of it goes to transporting her and sex workers for the purpose of sex work. So that's, I think count 5 in the indictment, transportation to engage in prostitution. Here's a great question. After yesterday, when Diddy got in trouble for allegedly nodding at the jury during cross-examination of a witness, we got a question here from Shady Nasty. What is Diddy's demeanor like in court today listening to Jane testify?
Well, Diddy at the defense table is doing kind of what he normally does, minus kind of the nodding along with the testimony and things of that sort. So for the most part, I do see him at times jotting notes down, passing.
I mean, that's what they focusing on. This case is being tried in New York City. And they paint these pictures like here in LA and all this type of stuff. That's the trafficking part they trying to prove. Like, you can't move these commercial sex workers. You can't move them across state lines. That's like an automatic federal charge. Like, we all know that stuff. So we know a lot of us watch this court stuff. We know a little bit about these trials and all that type of stuff, even though we're not lawyers and we may not know all the verbiage and get in there and actually do the job. But we know the basics of federal charges. When you go across state lines, it don't matter what the genre is. It could be murder, it could be bank robbery, fraud, whatever. But once you cross those state lines, that's federal. You're doing these stuff in 2 different states. We all know that. But let's get back to this girl. She does her job. So let's go.
If there was ever a time to speak life into your dreams,
They got
it's
a
right
commercial
now.
going on. They
I
got to
did
make
see
their
them
money.
either
They ain't never
looking
mad at
directly
them.
at Jane while she's testifying, especially during those moments where she got super emotional. She began crying. And then I also saw them looking at AUSA Maureen Comey, too, while she was kind of doing her lines of questioning. And so there were times where you could see jurors looking at Maureen Comey, then looking at Jane on the witness stand, or they're just laser focused on Jane. Or some of them I've seen are just jotting down a bunch of notes. I have seen a lot of notes because there were exhibits that were shown, and a lot of exhibits that were shown. Unfortunately, during Jane's testimony, we in the gallery and even those in the overflow room cannot see it, but we're hearing a lot of descriptions of them. For example, the many lines of escorts and the escorts photographs that the jurors saw today and that Jane saw today too. But from what I could see of them, really it seems like they're paying very close attention. I didn't see any outwardly kind of facial expressions as far as maybe being confused or anything like that. Really, they're just kind of like, I really kind of want to know myself what's going on in their minds sometimes, because sometimes they have a very stone cold face kind of going on while they're listening to a lot of graphic testimony.
By the way, did you hear that recording that was played in court today regarding, I think you could hear Combs, Jane, and this guy named Don, right? What was that recording?
Yes, well, let me get to that part of my notes. Because,
well, I'll tell you what.
as you get to your notes,
I will give you another good question for you. This is from I Do Voodoo 1. Elizabeth, I forgot what skincare you use. What shorthand program are you using? You rock. So if you answer that, or you want to answer the more serious question about the recording as you get to your notes.
I mean, I can always answer about skincare. It's toner, it's retinol, it's serum, it's face mask, it's Vaseline lip moisturizer, and
Yeah, man, y'all in here, click that like button and also click that notification bell. This is GPTV1 live stream. And if you want to make a donation, you can go to my chime at $Mr-GPTV1. It keep us going and motivated. And your support means the world to me. Let's get back to it. This lady right here is very detailed. We checking various media outlets for different updates, and it's all good. We right in here, fam. Oh, share this live stream. Let's go back.
hear the exhibit because, again, we can't see it, but we can hear this audio. The jurors can see this. So you can hear voices. It's all jumbled up. I'm kind of like, what is this that we're hearing? And Jane said it was herself on this recording, Dawn and Diddy on this recording. And she said during this video, she was asking Dawn to put on a condom. And Diddy said, what are you doing? What do you want? And so then Maureen Comey replays it again, and she kind of takes it piece by piece as far as what was being said. So Jane said, I think they're in the chair, and they, she was referring to as condoms. And then Diddy said something along the lines of, you were just taking that D if you don't touch yourself right now. And then Jane was explaining, I understand that my request was going to be denied. And then Maureen Comey asked, well, why did you need permission from Mr. Combs for an escort to have sex with your body? And then Jane's getting pretty emotional here. And then Jane herself responded, I don't know, I'm still trying to process everything. And then there was an objection from the defense. They had a sidebar. And then when they came back from this sidebar, Maureen Comey asked again, why didn't you insist that Dawn wear a condom? And Jane responded, I didn't want to disappoint my lover. He wouldn't be in a good mood or satisfied with the night.
Yeah, I just got through speaking about that. You know, that's just horrible.
The escorts to not be wearing rubbers or condoms when they're having sex with her. She said that he doesn't like seeing these on the escort's body. And so it was just an interesting kind of recording to kind of hear out in court. At first, I was like, what are these words? Like, I really couldn't comprehend it. But as
I hope you went to go get some type of HIV testing or whatever goes along with all that.
Got a great compliment just came in from Donnie.
Yeah, the worker themselves shouldn't do that. What's wrong with y'all?
Rock, so thank you so much. Very kind of you to say. Okay, We did have a question here from Shop Girl, and I don't know if you were in court for this. We saw reporting about it. What was the extent of Diddy's aggravation when he was obviously angry speaking to his attorneys? There was something reported about that. I think the jury had been excused maybe on a break, and he was quite animated speaking with his attorneys. Did you see anything like that?
I didn't see anything like that. I might have been a point where I stepped out to use the restroom, but I mean, wow, I'm hearing this for the first time, so I didn't see it in person. So unfortunately, I can't answer too much of your question. I think I might have just gone off to the restroom, I guess, when that moment might have happened.
So Elizabeth, would you agree with me and pick out the points? Do you feel that from today's testimony and a little bit from yesterday, they are solidifying transportation to engage in prostitution?
Yeah, that's what they're trying to prove.
Of transporting sex workers and alleged victims for the purposes of prostitution, for the purposes of sex work. You don't need force, fraud.
Yeah, that's what I think they're trying to do with this particular witness. They're not trying to prove like force and coerce. I think they're trying to prove that they transporting the sex worker across lines. Let's go.
Of escort exhibits, we saw a man named Don. He was an escort that Jane and Diddy had used, and the last time she saw Don, this particular escort, I thought it was interesting. The last time that she had sex with him, and during these hotel nights, even though sometimes they didn't always happen in hotels, the last time was August of 2024. So like just last month, or not last month, oh my goodness, last year, but a month before Diddy was arrested. Then there was an exhibit shown to the jury and to Jane. It was Paul the escort, and that Paul was used from 2021 until July of 2024. Jane thought that he was a personal trainer because he actually trained Diddy, but he also worked for Cowboys for Angels. But I think the sticking point here is that she saw him in Los Angeles. She saw him in Miami. She saw him in Turks and Caicos. There was Leo, the escorter, also referred to as the Italian. She met him in 2022 on her birthday. The last time she saw him was in 2023.
Y'all want to shout out your comments or your name will be shown here. Let's go. Let's continue.
A bit of met him in 2021, and this was the escort that she said that she was repulsed by him, that he was super sweaty, he had smelled, she was hesitant with him, and that he was used in just different places too. So I think if anything, that the prosecution does have that working for them. I think it is still kind of up in the air as far as count 4 goes when it pertains to sex trafficking with Jane's specific count. But as far as just transportation to engage in prostitution, I think Maureen Comey is really kind of making great points here and there where it's like, well, where did you see this individual? Was it in Miami? Was it in Vegas? Was it in Los Angeles? And even for Dawn, for example, one of the first escorts that Jane had booked on her own, she was explaining that he was someone that they always flew out from Atlanta to wherever they were, either it be in Los Angeles or other places, and that they would be arranged, the travel as far as Dawn was concerned, would either be arranged by Jane herself, but she would be reimbursed by Diddy, or it'd be by Diddy's travel agent who would get everything going as far as making the flights for him and then flying him out from where his home was in Atlanta, Georgia, over to wherever Diddy and Jane were.
Just to clarify here, Elizabeth, what are the points you think the defense is going to jump on? And when I say that is, I'm reading the transcript, and there's certain parts of her testimony that I don't think are great for the prosecution. You know, I mentioned it before, but the idea of there was this sweaty individual, and it doesn't seem, unless I'm wrong, Combs forced her to actually continue sexual relations with him, that she still talks like a loving relationship with Sean Combs, you know, that she wanted to be in his arms. She just wanted to be with him. She loved him. I mean, she was dating him up until his arrest in 2024, that she was the one who was writing sexually explicit messages to these sex workers, seemingly, you know, she says it was at Sean Combs' request. But are there certain avenues,
I don't think this person, Jane, is a good witness for the force and coercion stuff. I literally think it's strictly about transporting the sex worker.
The defense is definitely going to ask Jane how she feels about Diddy today as far as whether or not she still has feelings for him, because I think there are times during her direct testimony where you can kind of like she is a little, I don't know if it's in general, or that she may have kind of conflicted. September of 2024, they had a long a long relationship beginning all the way in 2021, not as long as Cassie and Diddy were together, the 11-year on. Here to ask you, do you know?
One of the things I know is about Diddy, he don't hang out with people his age. Everybody that hangs around him, that's working for him, and basically his whole crowd, they're all like years younger than him. You know, and I always encourage people, get you some a rational voice that rides around with you. They can stop you from doing some of this stuff. Because like I've always said during this Diddy trial, people will sit there and watch you do bull crap. And once you cut everybody off, they're going to turn against you. They're going to turn against you. You start cutting people off, cutting that water off, stopping the money flowing. It's all good once everybody's sitting there partying, getting high and doing freak offs and all that. But when you start cutting people off, stop cutting that water off, start cutting that money off, they're going to turn on you. That's facts. That is a fact. But let's go back to this woman right here. She does a great job.
But Alexandra Shapiro stood up and was like, I can't stay late just talking. But I want to hear all of this. I think that the defense knows just what Jane's testimony is. But I think kind of a lot working for them when they do eventually get to cross-examining her.
And by the way, if anybody has any questions for Elizabeth as we have our time with her, please submit them right now. Do you know if who's there on Diddy's side today? Is his family there?
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of family members today. So, for example, we're seeing his sons, including, I almost said Tristan, but it's Justin and Christian. I'm sorry, everyone. I know today is Friday, and I'm feeling the Friday vibes. But also, Janice Holmes was at that.
Yeah, it's the Friday vibes, and I found some other stuff they were saying about this case right here. Let me go back to it. So this Jane said that she met Combs during a girls' trip to Miami in 2020, and she dated him from 2021 to 2024. And like they said, they dated until he got locked up, and they had a passionate relationship. But soon began sharing his fantasies. Oh, man, you can't, man. He be turning these folks into these addicts and all that type of stuff. They don't be living these lifestyles. They just think that's just what rich people do, and they want to be a part of that. After May 2021, she said 90% of the time she had sex during her relationship with Combs, it was with other men while he watched. So this the part I'm saying, though. Where is you getting off at in this part? I understand you sitting there watching your girl, but where you getting off at? What are you doing? Sitting there jacking off and all this stuff? I mean, what's the business? Both Jane and Cassie have described trying to rush through the encounters. Yeah, that's fact. If a woman really don't want to be there, like, you can be screwing her and all that type of stuff, but I don't mean she actually enjoying it, so. The judge has taken steps to protect Jane's name or identity. And, of course, they're talking about ejecting him out of court and all Combs and all of that. So, yeah, man. So if you sitting there watching everybody else do your woman in, I don't see, well, that's his fantasy. So maybe that's what it is. It is what it is.
Positively to the defense. And number two, do they look like they're affected by Diddy's presence or behavior in that courtroom?
Well, I don't know if they're necessarily affected by his behavior, because I thought after the judge kind of admonishing Diddy, I thought maybe there would be kind of a change in maybe facial expressions as far as the jurors not kind of looking his way. But I think because of the way the layout of the courtroom is, you can't help but kind of look over in that way or anything like that. But as far as just kind of him looking at the jurors, and let me just say, he doesn't just look at the jurors, he looks at everybody in the gallery too. There are moments where even us on the press side, he does make eye contact with us. And myself, who's not a juror on this case, I myself find that kind of intimidating. So I can only imagine kind of how the jurors are feeling when they're getting kind of looks from the defendant himself. And I'm also wondering, as far as just nodding along, it was something again that he was doing I think, a little bit longer than when the judge kind of pointed it out. He did this for other.
If Diddy can stare at you in that courtroom, he is definitely going to try to do that for sure. He want to intimidate you. There's no question about that. Hey, if you stop it in here, click that like button and click that notification bell. Definitely helps out the channel. Appreciate it.
Been Punisher who was testifying, where I did see one juror kind of nodding along to, I believe,
You're feeling generous, you can hit me on my chime.
along to his line of cross-examination. But even as far as today goes, which we haven't gotten to the cross, it's still under the direct, so the prosecution's still asking those questions. I haven't seen much of a reaction from them, but they're really kind of hard to read sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, are they really interested? Sometimes I'm like, are they jotting notes down pertaining to testimony? Are they possibly writing their own grocery list down? Because when you're inside that courtroom for hours on end listening to this really graphic stuff, sometimes I'm wondering, like, are they really paying attention? But from what I can see and from what the judge has even kind of complimented on, is it seems that everyone is paying attention to what's going on inside the courtroom.
Got one more question for you. This is from Jonathan Berry. Who is coming up after Jane, Elizabeth?
I do not know who's coming up after Jane. I'm very curious to see. I think a lot of us are possibly wanting to hear from somebody that we've been hearing a lot about, and that being KK or Christina Coram. But the government hasn't given any indication if she'll take the stand, and if she does take the stand, when that'll be. But I do think what the government is gearing up for is just their summary witness to eventually take the stand, and that person's going to really kind of wrap up everything together, probably show some demonstrative exhibits as far as just these different charts and how the escorts were flown out on certain days and all of that stuff. So I think for sure we're getting kind of possibly, maybe, depending on how you look at it, close to the end of the government's case, but I don't want to put words in their mouth just in case we see maybe 20 more witnesses down the line, and I don't want y'all to get mad at me when that happens.
No one will ever get mad at you. Don't you know that by now, Elizabeth? Elizabeth, thank you.
And they got a few more weeks on this case. Who y'all think winning? You think P. Diddy gonna walk? It's mixed feelings. It's a big debate all across the country and in the world. They talking about this all over the world. So we'll see. I think the only thing confusing people because he on there up there by himself. But let's see what these guys. Let's switch and see what the CNN people are talking about. Let's see what they got going on over there. Switch to CNN. And of course, I got other updates from other media outlets, news articles and things of that nature. But I like to jump around and try to keep it up to real time. These people will be a little bit behind, but it still makes sense what they're saying. Let's go here and see what the CNN people are talking about. Let me go ahead and unmute that. Let's go.
At the very beginning of the cross, when Westmoreland asked the question about the immunity and said, you're only can be prosecuted if you're lying, right? Yes. Who gets to decide whether you're lying?
Well, the prosecutor decides whether she's telling the truth. But here's the thing, and I hate to be a Monday morning quarterback for the prosecutors or for the defense, but this is an example, in my view, of a lack of preparation. She was a Jekyll and Hyde witness. When she probably prepped, she was good, but on the stand, if they didn't pin down that date, you can't rehabilitate a witness after you've been crushed on cross on the date. It's too late.
It can't be, it happened someday, and they said it happened on a particular day. Thank you so much, everyone.
This morning, Sean Combs' sex trafficking trial is set to resume with more testimony from Combs' ex-girlfriend who is testifying under the pseudonym Jane. Another explosive day in court yesterday where the judge threatened to remove Combs from the courtroom for seemingly trying to engage with the jury. The judge said on at least 2 occasions he saw Combs, and I'm quoting here, nod vigorously in their direction. Here now, Joey Jackson, CNN legal analyst and criminal defense attorney, explain why Combs gesturing towards the jury is such a problem. Is the judge worried about influence, potentially fear, ethical issues? What are the parameters here?
Yes, and intimidation, etc. Sarah, good morning to you. So the jury is sort of this sacred, right, sort of group of people, and you don't want to influence them at all, right, real or imagined. And so the attorneys are often told, well, they're told basically every day, listen, the bottom line is And during jury selection, look, the attorneys are not going to speak with you. They'll have no interaction with you. They're not being rude, but I've instructed them that they don't want to influence your decision in any way. Now take that to the client
You follow
himself.
me on social media?
Certainly
I'm on
we're
X.
emotional people. Everyone is. And so you're
Live on
engaged in the
Twitch as
proceeding.
well.
You may nod, you may do something, but you're not going to do that to the extent that you may influence the jury. So the judge here being concerned, saying we're not going to head nod, we're not going to do any of that. And in light of that, if I see him do it again,
I'm on X. I'm on Instagram. Y'all can follow me.
To the bench. It's kind of nodding. Tell him not to do that, okay, in any way, shape, or form, and we'll be okay. But I don't think he'll be removed. The judge is trying to take control and ensuring that the trial goes as it should.
All right, so we had this person testifying named Jane. That is the pseudonym that they're using for her. She said that she was in an open relationship with Sean Combs, and then detailed some of what that relationship did. Can you give us some sense of how impactful her testimony was for this jury, but whether or not it spoke to the charges against Combs, which is sex trafficking and racketeering?
Yeah, so Sarah, very important witness because it goes specifically of sex trafficking. And what you're looking for is the checking boxes where you having these relations, various places.
One of the things they're going to highlight about this witness is the non-use of condoms. Like, I'm researching for more updates from other outlets, and I see headlines already. She asked to use condoms, and he said no. So be prepared to hear a lot of that stuff, fam. Hey, click that like button. You in here, fam. I want to thank y'all for joining me, for real.
11-year relationship. It was a 3-year relationship, but nonetheless a relationship. So Combs was a participant, enjoyed it, and consented to it, and so you look at how did he control her. He gave her indication that she was on board, but she didn't want to be. And so the jury question will be here, meaning the question of fact, again, is...
I think P had an addiction to watching porn.
With you.
I also think this guy went through some type of abuse as a young person along those lines. That's just my opinion.
To sex. This is jury.
There is so much here. We're, I think, at the end, 4 weeks testimony here, and there is still at least a couple of weeks to go, as we understand from the prosecution. Joey Jackson, it is always a pleasure for you to come and go through what has been explicit.
Yeah, I think he was addicted to watching porn for sure, because how they describing all this stuff. He's sitting there watching them. And that's pretty much what people do when they watch porn. They sit back and jack off. They ejaculate on themselves. That's pretty much what they do. And that's what it seems like he's setting up, like a porn scene. And let's go back here and see what they're talking about.
Don't the feds only need 2 of the 8 charges? So I think they're saying, don't you need only 2 of the several underlying predicates for racketeering?
That's all they need. It's not a difficult thing for them to overcome in this case. Yeah, all they need is 2, which it seems to me they're going to get there.
I think they've done it. I mean, Joe, I think they've done it.
I think they've been there.
Labor, which,
by
the way,
why you asked me, they're doing too much.
Put aside kidnapping, Capricorn,
I think they
trafficking, Cassie. I mean, some visible doubt. I mean, it'll be the jury, but I think they've set the boxes.
It's a far reach to do life in prison for these charges. I don't think that part is cool. He committed some crimes and all of that.
Sexual episodes work.
In prison,
he's taking care of her financially. Is this forced labor one of the underlying crimes of?
If you get 20 years, that's still like life in prison, because he's 55 years old. He'd be 75 by the time you get out of there.
But they still have the square peg in the round hole problem. There's a lot of things that, there's 7 or 8 different things, each of which could be a potential crime. But it still feels as if when you're doing RICO, you can take a bunch of stuff with racketeering, throw it in a bowl, mix it around, and it's almost like you don't pay as much attention to the crime itself, whether you're talking about the arson, whether you're talking about some of these other things. It's almost like they don't pay quite as much attention, and there's not quite as much proof or coming out, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, of the actual crime.
Fair case, they don't need much. There's too many people been railroaded in that court system.
The question becomes, are the predicate crimes there? Yeah, you can take a couple of them there, et cetera. But all the jury has to do, of course, is believe the testimony.
Exactly.
Yeah, a couple of them are there, but it's still RICO, and it feels a little bit different because even what you're talking about, Jesse, well, she was forced to do this, and she's overworking hours, etc. The first time a jury, these regular folks in their daily lives have looked at facts like this and been.
That's a really great point.
Forced labor from it, if that's the ask. Wow. And so that's what the risk is. Because it's a little bit different because you're going under RICO charge.
I think this case comes down to closing arguments, trying to articulate Kid Cudi relate Jane. I'm confused at this point, but it's up for the prosecution to clearly outline and articulate it. And these jury instructions, so important. Meaning, we got another super chat question. This is from Kinga Seraphin. How long do you think it will take the prosecution to rest their case? And most important question, Jesse, what's your skincare love? What's your skincare? Love from Poland. They felt that
they got 4 more weeks on this trial, but I found something else in one of these reports where it says during these escapades, this lady Jane that's on the stand right now, that she would take multiple doses of ecstasy. And she would try to rush through this stuff, but it's hard to rush through that stuff when you're on all these drugs. And I don't believe he was going to in a rush. But let's go back to that.
Going to testify, so that can down on the time that possibly had to that they factored in estimation. But according to the judge, he said he's looking to wrap up by July 4th.
Good. I mean, we'll see. There's always that. Long take a half a day or a full day to determine what is credit.
And by the way, Diddy got his supporters down there. They're in a report, I believe that was yesterday, where they saying people are fighting. Like fights been breaking out in these lines trying to get into this courtroom to get to this trial. There's so many independent people going down there, and it's free to the public. Anybody can go down there. But I did hear reports that people are fighting in the lines, getting in that courtroom, and then P. Diddy supporters, they down there barking at people and that type of thing. So it's kind of chaotic to even get down there. So they say you had to get there early as possible. That's New York City for you, baby. Anybody ever been up there?
Okay. ATS. Okay, I'll throw this to you, Maria. Can you explain the balancing test the judge uses to determine if a witness can testify anonymously? So, example, Jane, Mia. Does the government have to?
I see a few people in here. Shout out to y'all.
It is a great question. Really, I don't want to say the wrong answer. I researched it. I'm gonna just say that the balancing test probably has to do with whether or not they're victims or whether or not they qualify as a victim. But if anybody else on the panel has a direct response, I don't know.
I'll throw it to you, Joe. But the way that I understand it, at least from a civil context, Joe, and this came up a lot in the civil suits that Diddy was facing. Not every Jane Doe who filed a lawsuit against him could proceed anonymously. There is a balance of interest here. So, first of all, it's a criminal case where they don't necessarily want to tie. They might sure there's a question of cooperating with the government, but they have less of a choice than someone who has filed a lawsuit, has taken a actually initiate litigation. So in that sense, if you're going to file a lawsuit against Sean Combs, you're putting your case in the spotlight. He has a right to know who his accuser is, who started this. You might have, unless you can demonstrate there is a significant risk to your safety or reputation from you revealing yourself, the burden almost seems on the plaintiff in that case to prove that they need to be anonymous. It feels different. They say, hey, listen, you know, I shoot my identity. They may have more of protection from being identities revealed.
Yeah, someone that's not involved in a proceeding voluntarily, right? Someone that's been subpoenaed to testify, et cetera, and you know there's a demonstrable fear for safety that is legitimate. It's still balanced against the fact that Diddy, in this case, has the right to face his accusers, et cetera. He's not supposed to be in a situation where we don't know who Jane Doe is, and Jane Doe is lobbing shots from behind the veil, as it were.
It would be smart for P. Diddy to use his rights. He got rights.
For you, I'm suing Diddy, and I want to be anonymous too at the same time. That's going to be much, much harder because you're bringing yourself into that area and bringing it on. But if it's a criminal case where, for oversimplifying it, safety is in question, right? This is one of the reasons that Diddy is being prosecuted. I think a judge, when doing the balancing, is going to be a little bit more likely to allow, and it's not likely, it's still in exceptional circumstances, it's going to be a little bit more likely to allow someone to be anonymous under circumstances like this, particularly given the nature of the case.
Mina, there's a good follow-up question to this. This is from El Spelunker. What about their identities? You know, I'm not going to talk about what's coming out.
You know they're going to find out who these people are. They're doing movies.
There's a lot of speculation about who Mia is.
Documentaries. They're looking for a payday after all of this.
Now,
this will turn into $1 billion industry. This trial.
They're coming out there and.
Yeah, I'm looking to make a few dollars off of it. If you want to feeling generous, you can send something to my chime. Anything helps.
It absolutely is. And you also have to remind yourself that some of these women would have not come forward. You know, they didn't necessarily file civil lawsuits. Cassie did file her civil lawsuit, but some of these women have not spoken about these incidents until now because they've been subpoenaed or asked by the government. Specifically Mia, to the grave with this information. She was so ashamed to even talk about it publicly. And from what I'm reading from the report, she's looking down throughout her entire testimony. Now, you can obviously interpret that in different ways, but she's upset and shameful at the things that she's done in my interpretation of why you look down during testimony. So I think you also have to consider that some of these women and some of these employees and some of these people would probably have talked about this were they not asked by the federal government. And in order to keep some normalcy to their lives after this, they would like to remain anonymous. They have to go back to their regular lives. This is a huge trial. This is a huge case. It's being publicized everywhere. Even though we're not seeing video, it's still the talk of the town, the talk of social media every single day. How do you go back to your regular?
I call it as the Diddy turns. Okay, fam. This has been a live update in real time on GPTV1. You stopping by, please click the like button, click that notification bell. We have more live streams coming up, and you can go to the channel and check out some of the playlists. PDQ has been killing it lately. It's been the top video that's been, or docuseries that's been grabbing a lot of attention on the channel. And I want to thank you for your support. This is all for entertainment purposes. I'm not picking either side, but I think it's a lot stacked against this guy. It's going to be pretty hard to escape these charges. Yes, they're going to be able to poke holes into these witnesses, but that's their job, and it's going to happen. And everybody's not going to be a good witness. I don't think no case is a slam dunk case. You go in there, you better fight for your life and use every right you can, every trick you can, whatever you can. And I'll holler at y'all later on. I actually got a live stream coming on later on this evening, so check me out later on. Peace out. One love.